Come on in, sit back and relax. You're listening to episode 277 of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting. And this podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. My guest today was Adam Palmer, VP Strategic Product Development at Orion. And I brought him on because we wanted to talk about some new stuff happening at Orion, Orion's cloud data strategy and how that's evolving, their partnership with Snowflake and some of the benefits. We talked about data processing scale, artificial intelligence, of course, natural language processing applications, and a little bit about their roadmap. Now, before we get into the podcast, as we know, Orion has literally thousands of clients from some very large broker-dealers down to individual RIAs, and all of these firms know the importance of a solid tech stack to support their business growth. Now, at Ezra Group, we've seen the tech stack of literally hundreds of RIAs and broker-dealers. Let me tell you, most of them are loaded down with tech debt. And let's face it, tech debt can act like an anchor, holding down your RIA's efficiency and ability to scale. Now, if you want to free your firm for exponential growth, you need to run, not walk, to our website, EzraGroup.com, and click on the golden Contact Us button on the homepage. The experienced team at Ezra Group can evaluate your current tech ecosystem, deliver targeted recommendations, optimize your current systems and operations, or even run an RFP and help you implement new software to get your firm to the next level. Ezra Group just makes tech stacks better. You can take advantage of our free initial consultation by going to EzraGroup.com. Now, my standard housekeeping chores, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Check out our sponsor, the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation at investinothers.org. And now, let's kick this thing off. All right, we're ready with our next guest. It is Adam Palmer, VP of Strategic Product Development at Orion. Adam, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you, Craig. It's a pleasure to be here and exciting to be on the show.
I'm glad you can make it. Glad we could coordinate with the powers that be at Orion. I know you guys were really busy last week with your conference. Thanks for inviting me. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was a wonderful conference. One of the best that we've thrown, and obviously we can't do it without the support of the likes of Ezra Group.
Happy to help. Happy I could get there and moderate a panel of some of your biggest RIA clients. That was fun. And Adam, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from our headquarters here in Omaha, Nebraska. Um, Cold, bitter, but no snow on the ground yet.
Yeah, I always make fun of people where they're calling from that it's not as cold as New Jersey, but you are colder than New Jersey.
There are certainly days, right? We can feel like -10, and we can feel like 45 degrees and sunny at the same time. So
Have to. I've never been there. I'm going to visit there one day, and I'll get to experience it myself. But maybe I'll go in the summertime.
yeah, well, just don't come in August. Come
Right.
before August. You're fine. Then yeah, you'll experience the 110 degrees.
Right. I got my schedule all planned out. Right,
Yeah.
June or July, I'll be there. All right. So Adam, we're talking about a recent announcement from Orion. Um, and everyone, of course, here knows what Orion does, knows your platform, knows your capabilities. We're not going to go through that again. We're talking about Orion expanding the real-time cloud-based data sharing with Snowflake. So, what maybe if you can just do a quick overview of your role at Orion and the parts of the organization that you're responsible for, then we'll jump into the press release.
Yeah, happy to do so. So, yeah, where I sit in the organization is I do sit on the product development or product management team, and from an accountability standpoint, and what I particularly oversee with the Orion technology is Orion connects core portfolio performance reporting engine and our abilities around that, as well as all third-party integrations. So always happy to see Craig, your report when it comes to the industry integrations and how Orion is positioned in that front. The red tail product lines, meaning CRM, imaging, Speak, and the email archiving capabilities there. And then lastly, which is why I think we're sitting here talking today, is what Orion calls our cloud data team. And really what that team is responsible for is enabling Orion to share data with not only customers, but also vendor partners in a real-time capacity to promote tighter and greater integration capabilities with the likes of AWS Redshift and the aforementioned Snowflake platform.
I was looking at a report from Snowflake called Data AI Foundations in the Cloud for Financial Services. In that report, they said organizations, financial services organizations, are using up to 40% of their data spend on data management alone. And more organizations believe they will deliver on their future data cloud strategy in 2 to 5 years. So um, how does that information help you in your decision to move to Snowflake? And what was behind this decision? Because before you had announced a couple of years ago partnering with Amazon Redshift, which is a competing data warehouse. So
Mhm.
what was behind that decision, and what was behind the decision to expand into Snowflake?
Yeah, well, the first thing that makes me smile when you say that stat, right, Craig, is I feel like we're ahead of the curve, right? With that, as far as Snowflake's findings with financial services and them just making the push and them just making the jump in the next 2 to 5 years, right? I would say we are already on year four of our journey on that front, and yes, we did come out of the gates in 2022 partnering with AWS Redshift not only to promote this data sharing capability, which for long story short, we kind of stubbed our toe into that from an integration standpoint, but we chose Redshift to power the portfolio accounting experience for Orion Connect, and that is our data warehouse and our data architecture that allows us to do all the things that we do, serving data up to our front end. We then did, like I jokingly said, stumble our or stub our toe into data sharing with AWS Redshift. And what that has gotten us that has gotten us to a point where we are sharing data with over 180 of our largest customers and largest partners at Orion. But we did see a little bit of a limitation in terms of where we can expand access to this data long term, and that ultimately was the genesis of our partnership with Snowflake. And the reason that partnership is so important for Ryan is Snowflake plays in a very important agnostic role in data sharing, meaning Snowflake can connect to obviously Snowflake. Snowflake can connect to Redshift, Azure Cloud, Google Cloud. So Snowflake gives us yet another tool in our toolkit to integrate better with customers and vendors.
Did you find that there was so you mentioned limitations with Redshift. So is Snowflake more agnostic when you're connecting to other data warehouses?
Yes, I would say that, and we have a great relationship with AWS. They are our preferred cloud provider, but ultimately, from just an integration perspective, the ease of onboarding and the ease of direct connection, Snowflake has done a tremendous job in building out those capabilities to support um, customers of Snowflake onboarding more easily, integrating more effectively, and the familiarity is already there in our industry with Snowflake.
Yeah, it sure is. And I think according to that same Snowflake report, more financial services organizations were adopting multi-cloud strategies, 37%, versus hybrid, 34%, versus single, 14%. So seems like multi-cloud is the way to go. Are you seeing that as well with your clients?
We're seeing it not only with our clients, but also internally. In there's some large RA aggregators out there that I speak to on a weekly basis, and that we're always talking about data architecture and data infrastructure. And I can name quite a few that are well known, incumbents in the RA aggregator space as well as broker dealer space that have that multi-cloud implementation being what we see a lot of right now is legacy Azure because Microsoft was the incumbent and very familiar with SQL Server and kind of that was that next progression is let's get Azure Cloud. But Snowflake is coming up a lot more.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We've been hearing a lot about it as well. They've got a pretty big market share in financial services. So when it comes to using Snowflake and implementing these different cloud providers. What do you have any statistics you can share? Like what amount of data are we putting through Redshift? How many accounts are you running? What exactly is it, are the capabilities you've put on this platform?
Yeah, so both Redshift and what will very soon be Snowflake in its entirety, right? I mean, our Kafka stream alone is running about 30 terabytes of data each day, from our backend SQL Server to our data warehouses.
And
And
for
that's
people
just
who
the
don't
event.
know, like Kafka Streams, that's a client library for building microservices.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Exactly. So in a very easy way, taking data from one source, in as a microservice, as Craig mentioned, migrating that data to another source. In this case, being a data warehouse like a Redshift or a Snowflake. And so, like I mentioned, we're moving about 30 terabytes worth of data, supporting over 6 million financial accounts on platform. That leads to, about 800,000 advisors working with those particular accounts and clients. So we are definitely definitely familiar with stress testing when in terms of loading and transforming data in these data warehouses.
You've got to be, right? At that level, especially when you've got clients like when I was doing my panel last week at your conference, I had Private Advisor Group and Cerity Partners on, and Cerity's up to $100 billion in assets. You really need to stress
Yeah.
test your systems. You need scale if you're going to be able to support clients of those size.
Yeah, and I would say, that's what also, these cloud platforms, they give you opportunity, right? You bring up Cerity. Cerity is a great example of an Orion customer that is not only pushing themselves from a growth standpoint, but they're pushing us to help enable that journey, right? One of the benefits of Snowflake that we see a lot of, and AWS is doing this as well, is their investment in NLP, their investment in AI technologies that can complement the data sets that are in the data warehouse, right? And how you put that data to work, especially around with Cerity specifically, just talking about them, around alternative data management. You know, what this strategy and what these capabilities have really transformed in my mind, Craig, and I know, you've probably heard this problem before, right? Is especially around illiquid investments. Reporting wasn't the problem. Data access and data governance was the problem. Well, I'm now leaning towards the 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 data access and the data governance is no longer the problem. It's how effective can you be with the data? That's the big question mark, that I'm finding now, and that's where, I know bringing up Cerity, that's what brings that to mind, is how effective can Orion be with the data sets that we have access to, in the billions of rows of data that come in and out of the system each day, to put that to work for the RAs and the broker dealer community out there.
So you mentioned earlier that a lot of your clients are using legacy Azure. Do you see that as just a cost of doing business? Is it providing a benefit for your clients? Is it um, causing them to be limited in some way? I mean, we're not selling cloud solutions here. There's Azure, there's AWS, there's Google, there's lots of other cloud providers.
Yeah.
When you're talking to clients, do you have a recommendation for which way they should go?
I don't necessarily have a recommendation, right? Maybe Craig, if you asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have said go AWS Redshift, right? But the reason why I don't see that as a sticking point or necessarily a bad strategy these days is, when we were evangelizing AWS Redshift, we thought we were going to change the industry and everybody was going to start buying AWS Redshift, right? Well, how naive of us in that regard, where now with Snowflake we can meet them where they're at, and ultimately still serve them from a data accessibility standpoint, regardless of what strategy they've deployed and what architecture they've deployed. And that's really why I see Snowflake being a leading technology for us to not only serve advisors that want access to the data and take disparate data systems. Like Orion is just one piece of the tech spread, right? And they might have Salesforce, they might have eMoney, they might have MoneyGuide Pro, but allowing them to aggregate that data into their backend data warehouse, because what we see in the data is any firm that is over 3 billion in assets that is not deploying some sort of data warehouse strategy is falling behind. And so ultimately, what we want to do is best serve all of the customers of all choices from a data warehousing standpoint, and that's where Snowflake is part of our strategy.
Mhm. I would agree with that. I mean, we work with a lot of RIAs in the billion and up category, and yeah, data warehouses is one of the most popular things we implement.
Yeah,
Well,
it's yeah. If you're listening today and you're sitting in a C-suite at a billion-dollar firm and wondering how do we get to two, how do we get to three, how do we get to five, taking control of your data is a huge component of that. We're not telling you to go out and build performance or portfolio accounting engines. I don't think you need that to do your job effectively. But you do need eyes on all of your data and all of your processes in order to make the best business decision for you.
absolutely. Yeah, and there's so many options out there available that I think some clients do get confused as to how to organize that. So when it comes to working with this platform, how long does it take to onboard? So I'm a client, I've got Snowflake, and I'm also an Orion client, and I want to
Mhm.
connect your instance to mine. How long is that going to take me? What's the lift there?
Yeah, so what we've seen there, Craig, both on Redshift and Snowflake, is if you are, if whether you just laid a credit card down this morning, right, and spun up a cluster on Redshift or Snowflake, or you already have it implemented, we can give you access to your data and data sharing in a business day turnaround.
That's incredible. One day. I've never
Yes.
heard of that.
And because really it's as easy and kind of knowledge out there that you can Google. As long as you have the account number and the namespace ID of the particular cluster, you can enable that data share from one data warehouse to another.
And
And what makes it easy is, and I saw a stat a while ago with Snowflake, and 90% of Snowflake implementations are still hosted on AWS. And if you have the ability to connect AWS account to AWS account, and you already know how to do that, it's all the easier.
So say it again, 90% of Snowflake instances are running on AWS.
Yes, that is a statistic I saw during the due diligence period,
Mhm.
and I asked that question because I was very surprised, right? Um, and uh, and lo and behold, although they have competing products, right? Redshift being a data warehouse, Snowflake just being a native data warehouse,
Mhm.
Snowflake is actually one of AWS's largest customers.
It's co-opetition.
Yeah,
We see it in our industry. Why wouldn't they see it in the infrastructure industry as well?
yeah.
What are some, I know you mentioned you have some proof of concepts running. When is this going to be launched?
Yep, yep. So we have proof of concept running right now, and then we are going to be adding to that additional firms and additional partners beginning in April here of this year. So just a short month and a half away.
Mhm.
From there, we are then going to be probably towards the later stages of 2025, early 2026, open up the floodgates to any and all. The reason we want to do that is, as any good uh, business operator, right, would take a look at is ROI on your investment there. And the one thing that I know I cannot write a check that I can't cash is effectively doubling our infrastructure spend from a storage standpoint. And so that's why I would say we're POCing this in 2025, gradually and slowly adding more and more firms to it. But then going to open up the floodgates in 2026.
Are there any other aspects of Snowflake besides being agnostic for data sharing? Can you share any other aspects that you felt were part of the decision to choose Snowflake over other data warehouse providers?
Yeah, I'd say one other component of Snowflake is their investment in growing their AI capabilities around data management. My team, as well as some collaborators and horizontal colleagues here at Orion, we've been blown away by Snowflake's investment in NLP and AI capabilities. Uh, one of the use cases that seems so simple, right? But it goes so far is the client onboarding process, as well as a client's tax transition process, and being able to put documents to work. You know, the low hanging fruit use case that drives me bananas as a techie, right? And I even did this with my own financial advisor. Is when we first met. Hey, when you're a prospect, come in and bring me 15 printouts of your bank statements, your custodial statements, all of this, and then some poor soul having to manually key that into an Excel spreadsheet to build some sort of hypothetical transition, right? And being able to power that with tools like what Snowflake is investing in, and us integrating those solutions out there into our tech will just make the advisor and ultimately client experience superior. Because that's ultimately what we want, right? If you think about technology usage in our lives on a day-to-day basis, there's so many things that are just served up for us. But when you talk about this very vulnerable topic of finances and net worth management, it it goes backwards in terms of what we're used to in our day to day life, and that's ultimately what we want to be partnered with is firms and partners that enable the behavioral change that comes with that.
Behavior is everything. So talking about that, so thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. Are there any specific other areas besides data importing PDF files or other scanned, unstructured data that you have been impressed with Snowflake's AI investment?
Um, Really, one of the areas that we're exploring right now, that I'm sure all Orion clients that are listening to this can appreciate, is around the actual data extraction process itself, with utilizing AI specifically,
Hmm.
right? We talked a little bit, Craig. We talked a little bit about data sharing and how that enables a human to go write some Postgres SQL query and get data out that they want, right? But that is a conscious decision that they've made to obtain that data. One of the key items that we've seen Snowflake invest in is the ability to ask a extremely general question, right? If you haven't messed with AI, think of just as simple as help me do something, Chat GPT,
I'd assume everyone
right?
listening to this podcast has messed around with AI.
Yeah, but the ability to say, tell Snowflake, I want a data extract of every single one of my accounts, give me year-to-date performance, the fee schedule assigned, and uh realize gain loss year to date. And being able to build that data extract out in real time, that's super powerful. That takes what some people might call 2 to 3 years of engineering to query something out like that, right? From a training perspective in your career, to all you have to understand is what those things mean from a vocabulary standpoint, and you can get the extract now.
Hmm. So would that be based on Snowflake, their Cortex suite? Is
Um,
the large language model that's for unstructured data?
yes, yes.
Thought that was pretty cool. So do you use your own LLMs or do you use theirs, or is it some federated version?
So it'd be so with the powers that be, right, and especially around protecting data and keeping data secure. That is where we would be taking an LLM, hosting it in our environment through like a vector database, something to that effect, and then having that LLM run on our training. So obviously in that case, nothing is getting back to the actual LLM. Snowflake, Microsoft, or sorry, OpenAI.
Mhm.
None of them are training their LLM on our data, but we are taking their LLM and putting it to work effectively.
That's what's important. Don't let the client data get out onto a public
Yes.
LLM.
Yeah, and if I did not say that, I'm sure I would have a phone call later today.
I'm
So
sure you would. That's why I asked. I wanted you to be able to. I know Snowflake has said that I've talked to Snowflake people and they're all very they're very adamant that they're not using, if you use their AI features, they're not training on it, they're not sharing it, that it's only running inside of your security and governance perimeter. So seems,
Yes.
seems pretty, they seem pretty confident that they've got that locked down.
Yep. Yeah, and obviously, we're running a lot of tests, especially in lower environments, in partitioned environments that are we say we have anonymized data. So we are testing a whole bunch of use cases, and while we have rolled out some AI features here at Orion, um, what we're testing goes way beyond that, right? We've rolled out the low hanging fruit from a use case standpoint, but what we're testing now is actual, um, I would say, real life application, helping you build a financial plan, helping an advisor get the best customer service answer, especially across the entire suite of Orion products. We have so many customers today that we expect them sitting at the Orion to, okay, you have to know the subtle nuance of the CRM versus the subtle nuance of portfolio accounting, or you have to know the how to drive a Ferrari in race car conditions in Eclipse versus using legacy trading software that doesn't do household tax efficient
Mhm.
rebalancing. And so expecting people to know that, right, while also doing their jobs is that's a way that we're testing AI to bring efficiency to their lives.
That's awesome. Before we wrap up, are there any roadmap items for 2025 that you can share around Snowflake or Redshift?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one, right?
Yeah,
Many
please let's start
people
with the biggest one.
uh,
Start at the top.
the elephant in the room summit, right? Reed Colley and team coming on board to Orion, which is something I am super excited about. I'm really excited to learn from Reed. For those that don't know Reed, co-founder and former CEO of Black Diamond, who is a respected competitor in our space, founded Summit as a co-founder and runs Summit as in the CEO capacity today. Recently joined the Orion team, and what is wild, right, and to see the power of this type of integration, right, is we were meeting with Reed's team just a week and a half ago before Ascent here in Omaha, Nebraska, gave them access to Redshift by way of a data share and soon to be Snowflake as well. And today, a week and a half later, we are about to demo the entire front end experience of Summit powered by the back end data share of Orion's core portfolio accounting functionality. So just using that as an example, that is the biggest thing I would say on our roadmap. The second thing that I want to talk a little bit about that is really important, and that's really Orion making good on the integration promise, right? Over the last call it 7 years, we've acquired disparate technologies. Advisor, which is Orion Planning, Basis Code, which is Orion Compliance, Hidden Levers, which is now Orion Risk Intelligence. All of those systems, while integrated from an SSO and an API standpoint, was not as tightly integrated as we want them to be, and they need to be in order to be effective altogether. And that's where what we call our global entity service comes into play. And that's built on top of our data warehouse, where, say, Craig Iskowitz as an end investor, right? Craig, you existed in the 7 different disparate Orion product lines. Well, with the global entity service sitting on top of our data warehouse being Redshift, and then soon to be Snowflake, you are going to exist in one centralized repository that then all disparate technologies are pushing and pulling data from in real time.
Mhm.
And the reason we're so high on Redshift and Snowflake is it scales to thousands and millions of rows of data being passed back and forth. Where I think you and I sitting here know APIs don't do that.
Mhm.
Will APIs still have a seat at the table and from a product development and an application development standpoint? 100%. APIs are going nowhere. But when it comes to transferring millions and thousands of data rows of data, APIs are not the future. This real time data sharing is the future.
You said it all, Adam. You told us the future. You gave us a vision and a glimpse. We really appreciate it. So I imagine people can find more information about Orion at orion.com.
Uh, the best domain out there.
I'm surprised you got that one. I'm impressed. Adam, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you sharing everything and giving us an update on what Orion's doing with Snowflake.
Craig, thank you so much for having me. And anytime you want to talk data, I'll pick up the phone.
I'm going to take you up on that offer. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Craig again. Here are my top three takeaways from this episode. Orion is expanding their real-time cloud data sharing from AWS Redshift to Snowflake for greater connectivity. Now, according to Adam, Snowflake enables easier onboarding, familiar industry adoption, and some artificial intelligence, natural language processing capabilities for enhanced data utilization. Orion processes 30 terabytes of data daily from across 6 million accounts, with plans to gradually expand Snowflake access through the next year. They on the roadmap, besides that, besides expanding access, they're also integrating the Summit Wealth front end, which they recently acquired, along with Reed Colley, who's now president of Orion Advisor Tech. They're marrying the Summit front end with Orion's back end for data sharing, and they're building a global entity service for united data access across all Orion products. All right, you've reached the end of another episode of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. But before you go, please head to our website, ezragroup.com. And if you are a vendor of software for wealth tech, wealth management firms, you should go to ezragroup.com/login, and you can register on our vendor integration portal. What that will allow you to do is update your own integration data, and it will feed into our Wealth Tech Integration Score, which you can find on our website under What We Do. And it's important for all vendors to do this to provide more information to your clients and your prospective clients about your integrations. So for Wealth Tech vendors, please go to ezragroup.com/login. And that's it. You've reached the end of another episode of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. But before you go, head over to our website, ezragroup.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, information, and updates. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you all again next time.